feel like half of you are honest. That's normal. That's normal. So I'm going to go ahead and pray. So Lord, just thank you so much for waking us up this morning. That seems like such a basic, insignificant thing, but it is a miracle every single day. Sometimes it feels like I am living on borrowed time after the life that I've lived, but you saw fit to pluck me up and set me in a place where I could get to know you more. I thank you. That is a gift every day, God. And just speak through me. In your name we pray, amen. So I'm going to start with just some basic questions. So who came here like in some way, shape, or form, like just like cried out, like I need something, right? Who was court ordered? Okay, and that's fine. I was like in between because I'd already put in my application, like I had cried out and I'd put in my application, but then, you know, I BOP'd and got court ordered here anyway. So, but I'd already done my blood work and everything before they told me I had to be here. So I was like, whatever, that was my plan. So, so it worked out. But, and I would ask a third question, and that'll make more sense here in a little bit. But what I really want to get to, because, you know, regardless of how we got here, this is where we are, right? And if you haven't come to the realization, to the point where you accept that God placed you here, that the court didn't do it, that it wasn't just this series of coincidences, that got this business card in my mom's hand in her office that led her to find, you know, this, you know, that's not how I got here. That's how God used people to get me here, right? But we have to remember that's how God uses people to do things, right? You know, and I love, man, that message that we heard on Sunday at First Christian about Naaman was awesome. Was awesome, right? I mean, I think we've all kind of taught on Naaman before. Whenever I look at it, I see way too much of myself in Naaman. Whenever he goes there and he's like, he won't even come and see me, like, and you're so petty because you want to pick your own healing. You think you're too good to do certain things, even though God just says God uses people, right? God doesn't speak directly. Like God used the prophet, right, to speak. God didn't speak to Naaman, right? God used a series of people, right, to lead Naaman to his healing. God didn't like come down from heaven and touch him and heal him. That's not the way it works, right? That's why in Romans 13 it says you have to submit yourself to the authority that God has placed before you because God placed it there, right? Because God isn't going to come down and, well, as Miss Pam would say, he's not going to Gibbs you in the back of the head if anybody's an NCIS fan. I am. But he doesn't do that. He sends people to do it for him, right? But we have a problem with listening to people. I had a massive problem. Like the staff who was before me when I was on the first and second, third, fourth, fifth rows, they don't know Jesus. They don't act like Jesus. They're not Christian. I'm not going to listen to them, right? Because we think we know. But and that's not exactly what I'm going to get to. But I loved his teaching on Naaman on, you know, just accept the process. It's a process. It doesn't happen on the first dip, you know. And by the third dip, you're probably wondering if any of it's even going to work. You know, you get into your third month, fourth month. I don't know what month 7 years is. I don't know. 12 times 7, 72? No, that's 80 something. Yeah, I was like 12 times 5 is 60. So I can math, I promise. But what I want to talk about is these 3 specific instances in the Bible that we can look at where people got separated from we can say mass society, right, for a reason. Number 1, the Babylonian exile. right? And I'm not going to like read all that led up to that, right? But you can just jot this down. It's in 2 Kings 25, 2 Chronicles 36. And you can kind of read about the main events that like led up. But this is where the Israelites, God allowed this, right? You read through this, God allowed his people to be captured by the enemy, right? He even calls the king of the Babylonians his servant, right? Because he's using the Babylonian king as his servant to do his bidding, which is capture his people and hold them captive for 70 years. And the reason that he does this is because they have, and let's say we have a long history of being rebellious, of thinking we know what's right, and doing the wrong thing, right? So for all of us who got court ordered here, we got forced to come here, right? They got forced into captivity, right? But it was for their own good, and it was God's doing. Right? And we fight it tooth and nail. We do. And even in Jeremiah 25, and you read where the Lord is literally saying, like, in this exile, in this exile, take root, make a home, get married, have children, make a life, get comfortable here, because you're going to be here for a while, right? And the reason that it actually lasted 70 years is because part of the Israelites' disobedience is because they weren't observing the Sabbath of the land. Because if you look in Leviticus 25, one of the laws was every 7th year you let the land lay fallow and you let the land rest. So you labor the land for 6 years, and then on the 7th year, you basically gather, your storehouses up those 6 years, so that 7th year your land can rest, you can rest, and you got enough food, for that year. But they hadn't been doing that for 400 something years. So the 70 years is all of those 1 years that they missed combined, right? So God was like, well, you're going to make up for it now. And I feel like he's done that with us, because who looked at this as punishment coming here? It's honesty is preferred. I didn't when I first got here, but the longer I got here, the more I looked at it as punishment. Let's put it that way. I had done some wrong things because, once toxins start leaving our systems and we're thinking a little bit more clearly, we're starting to remember more things and we're starting to feel guilt, right? So then that adds and that compounds with the feeling that this is some kind of punishment, right? When really, just the same, and I've talked about it before, God, throughout his word, hands his children over to the enemy in order to bring them back to him, right? Out of your idolatry, out of your disobedience, I'm going to set you aside so that you have no choice but to remember who I am. Right? It's no different than whenever we got grounded as kids. My mom didn't enjoy grounding me. She just didn't want me to do stupid things anymore because she cared about me and she wanted me to be safe. Right? I don't know if anybody else's parents grounded them out of malice or something. I highly doubt it. But point being, it's seen as a punishment, but in reality, it's to teach us responsibility. It's to teach us to be mature, responsible, things like that, right? But we can't do what we want to do. We can't smoke a cigarette when we want to smoke a cigarette, and we have to get up whenever the COD says we have to get up. I only have 15 minutes to have my bed made and be dressed. You're told what to do, right? But that forms habits. That forms you into an adult, right? We should have been doing these things long ago, guys. This shouldn't be an issue for us now in our 30s and, whatever. We should have known how to do this. But sometimes we need a little nudge sometimes. But then we can look at the great Exodus, the book is named after it, right? When the people of Israel cried out for God, they had been in bondage by the Egyptians, right? Punished, like horrible conditions, right? And they cried out to God. And he was faithful. And he saved them in a miraculous way, right? Can anybody else describe anybody who raised their hands whenever they said they cried out to God? Was it a long drawn out period that you found your way to the mission? Was it fairly quick? Yeah, really quick. Yeah. Usually the only time it gets drawn out is whenever we keep refusing to call. That's how that gets drawn out. But when we genuinely, earnestly cry out to God, he is faithful to answer pretty quickly, right? But even, and nobody has room to deny this, even just like the Hebrews in Exodus, after they cried out and God was faithful and saved them in a miraculous way, and even rained food down from the heavens, right? Split the seas, all this kind of stuff, then they still find room to complain. Me too, right? Me too. The second time coming back, I didn't ask to come here. Like the courts literally like drew the paper up. I got pulled from my cell and brought in there and they said, sign this, we're taking you back. I didn't have a choice. I was grateful for it, yeah, but that was not me at all, right? But then coming back, I've been to this program before. Like, I shouldn't have to do this. Me. I'm better than this. I miss my leeks and garlic in Egypt. Right? I read the minutes, y'all. I know. It's okay. Because I don't know, did anybody else whenever they got grounded, like sit in their room and just, God, I mean, I should just give her a piece of my mind, like, right, But now, as a 37-year-old person, I can look back and go, thank you so much for whooping my tail end. Thank you. At the moment, sobbing, crying, right, because I wanted to go outside. But now, thank you, because now I don't, run out in the streets. Now I don't, wander around in the dark. And it was relatively safe back then in the 90s. Now it's not, like, whatever. Anybody else have the streetlight rule? Yeah. But my mom, like, you could hear her whistle from across the subdivision. She didn't do like she did the 2-finger, like, loud, like, I don't understand. Oh my gosh. Hear her clear like 2 football fields away. God, you miss that whistle, you're in trouble. But then we come to, and this is obviously, and I want to go like this, I want another separation from society in order to grow closer to the Lord. Jesus in the wilderness, right? The beginning of his ministry. When he has John the Baptist baptize him, right? And you can look at it in Matthew 4, Luke 4, Mark 12, or Mark 1. But you read this account, and I want to make this clear. This is Jesus, right? No matter what you put on your application, when people said, when you were asked, what's your main problem? I just want to grow closer to the Lord. Listen, y'all. Nobody's judging. And that's not the case for any of us, okay? Jesus did this. I'm not Jesus, right? And neither are you. But this was a time for him to purify himself, to test himself, right? To prepare for what he was about to do, right? The work. And in a way, yeah, we can say, this is a place of preparation for us. It's in the name, right? It's a training center, right? We're being trained up to go out there and be his spokesperson, right? I can't even remember what the word is. We'll go with that one, yeah. I was thinking more of like the political, thank you. Thank you. Sorry, brain fart. I took my last final yesterday, so my brain is just gone right now. But we are being trained up here to be his ambassador to the rest of the world, right? And again, like we hear it every day up here in classes, whatever, like we're going to be persecuted for that. We're going to be hated for that. It's not going to be a smooth sailing road, y'all, right? This is to prepare you for that. But regardless of how God brought us here, we want to continue to deny that he had anything to do with it, because our minds are still so stuck out in the way the world functions and operates, right? We believe in coincidences more than our faith in coincidences is greater than our faith in God. Our belief that, weird things just happen, other than the creator of the universe who designed everything, including how intricate you yourself are made. There's no possible way that he orchestrated all of the events for me to be here. And even when we do grab hold of that, we get corrected in some way and want to argue about it, and you're not Christian and you're not from God. I can't believe that, because we don't like what we're hearing. Because our desperation has somewhere flitted off. We get comfortable, and it's easy to do it. We start to know the schedule. We know the routine, all that kind of stuff. When our bodies get in a routine, right, we start to get comfortable. We get complacent, and we think that we're good to go. We trick ourselves instead of listening to counsel. But I felt like, it was important. I know we've been talking about Abraham a lot, and here's the thing, like the beautiful part about, and I know we've talked over and over and over again about how these giants of the faith, like Abraham, lied to the king about being his wife's brother because he was scared of getting killed, right? Had a child out of wedlock because they didn't have enough faith in the promise of God. So they put it in their own hands to circumvent, and do it their own way to have Ishmael, right? But in the end, when God told Abraham to take Isaac up to that mountain and sacrifice him, against everything fleshly in him, he was faithful. And because of that, because he finally reached that plateau, right, where he can't climb anymore, he's got to hand it over to God. He finally did that. And when he did that, God said, nope, never mind, you don't have to kill him because you've proven yourself, right? But before that, it was disobedience, it was lack of faith, just like all of us. So what is it going to take for you to reach that point, right, that Abraham reached? That point in faith where you go, I have to give it all to you because it belongs to you anyway. And just like Abraham, we fight it tooth and nail until we just can't anymore. Or you die. I mean, that's the reality of it. And we all have a choice in it. And this is meant as an encouragement, because and this entire word is encouragement, because it's filled with people who, just like us, it's our story: disobedient, lacking in faith, rebellious, idol worshipers. But God, in his faithful grace and mercy, continues to capture them up and ground them to teach them a lesson, and then he brings them back to him. And just like the Israelites, we keep doing it. But you know what? He keeps bringing us back. But at a certain point, you have to stand firm in your faith and stop doing this and going around the mountain. Because an 11-day journey will take you 40 years. Make a choice. Make a choice. Mikey, will you pray?